Wow, this is incredible to see all the diversity, the different ages, different parts of town from people I've talked to, different races, just incredible that you've all come out to support Eleni. And it just speaks a lot about you and how you've inspired people, but I really think we've been inspired by something else. We've been inspired to make sure that Connecticut is Connecticut, and that it stays the Connecticut, the place that values education, that values our environment, that takes care of our youngest learners with early childhood education. It's time for Democrats to stand up, and we're doing that. I think that the current occupant of the White House and some of the changes at our State House have told us we can't take this for granted anymore. We need our best and brightest to run for office, but we all need to support them because actually I was going to say, Carrie and Mike, thank you for hosting this, but this is like ground zero from what I understand in Avon, where you all came together, where a movement started, and I would say, given everyone here tonight, a movement is growing, and it's just amazing. And listening to your commitment and your stories and your excitement about Eleni, and Eleni, the idea that your name tag says Team Eleni, this is a special woman. This is not about her. This is about us. And even her name tag says that. So you have picked the perfect candidate. And I have the really privilege of introducing her tonight and thanking her for running, because we know Eleni is going to stand up for our environment. We know Eleni is going to stand up for our public schools. We know she's going to fight for pay equity, for paid family medical leave, for access to college. We're going to have a bill this year about free community college so that everyone in Connecticut has access to higher education. We're looking at bills to try to reduce student loan debt. Those core principles of family economic security are so important. And it's so exciting to have you all out here saying, these matter to us, and we're going to work our tails off to elect Eleni. She is going to need all of you to make phone calls, to go door to door, to write emails to your friends, to share posts on Facebook, to help her meet her goal for public financing and fundraise. So I'm looking at you saying, thank you in advance, because I hope when General Assembly comes back a year from now, it's going to be a different General Assembly and a different governor, a Democratic governor. We need to keep Connecticut, Connecticut, and make sure that we're taking care of our families. And we're going to be able to do that because of Eleni. So I'm so proud to introduce you, and we can't wait to hear from you.
To have to go after both of them. I had to go after Liz Linehan last time, and that wasn't terribly fun either. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank everybody. First, I want to start with Carrie and Michael. I don't know what I'd do without these guys. So, especially Carrie. And when we were crying on that couch, this is not quite what we were envisioning. I think we were just envisioning a whole lot more crying, but you can only cry for so long, and then you lace up your sneakers. I believe that was what my president told me to do. Having said that, thank you, Beth, so much. Thanks to Chris Manny and Luke Bronan, and just thanks everybody for showing up, for saying you'd show up, and I really do appreciate that. A lot of you do know me, a lot of you don't know me, so I just want to start with a little quick primer on Eleni. And I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was born in the same hospital as Barack Obama. I have to tell you, that could not make me happier, and if he was packing his bags, so was I. So it was just accident of birth that I happened to be there with my mom and my biological father at the time, and but I'm really lucky that I was born there. Unfortunately, life is a funny thing, and so I was raised by a single parent, and so I know the struggles of a single parent inside and out. I know what it's like for my mom to have to work a full-time job and to get a side job to make sure that the things that she wanted for me were going to happen. And part of that team was that instead of my grandparents abandoning my mom when things didn't quite go how they thought it was going to go, they took us in. And that's what a big Greek family does. So for better or for worse, we're stuck with each other. And so it's really an honor for me tonight to have my mom here, to have my grandparents here. I just want to say a word also about my grandparents. My grandfather worked for 28 years straight for the unions. He was an International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. He was a general chairman. My bedtime stories were arbitration stories. I will not be sharing any of those in this public environment where I'm being recorded because, frankly, they're colorful. And so I know the value of a union. I know the value of how the unions in this country built the middle class. It shouldn't be a dirty word because our unions have really been the backbone of this country. And when you look at things that have been happening with our teachers, we have to really protect our teachers, and one of the ways that that happens is through the teachers union. I want to talk also about my grandmother and these two women. Man, everything I needed to learn about women's rights, I learned from these two women. Because for me, feminism is a choice. Feminism means that you have the choice. You can stay home or you can go to work. And in some ways, my mom didn't have a choice and she had to go back to work. And my grandmother stayed home and kept the home fires burning. But my grandmother comes from a long line of fighters. I am blessed that I had a godfather who was a public school teacher and eventually a public school principal, vice principal. And was a huge, huge influence on my life. One of her other brothers was a judge outside of Philadelphia, and the third brother, not only did he help with the initial Head Start programs outside of Philadelphia, but he helped to write the Americans with Disabilities Act. And when I was... And by the way, he was a Republican from Indiana. Just saying. So the great thing about having these family members is that you're taught from an early age that you stand up and you do the right thing. That's the most important thing that we can teach our children as we move forward, and that was certainly the lesson that was given to me. Proud graduate of James Madison University in Virginia, but I am coming up on my 19th year in Connecticut. I followed my wonderful, darling husband, Alan. Get a good look. You may never see him again. Not because we're getting divorced, but because he's keeping the home fires burning. God bless him. And I always tell the story, if I wanted him, I had to move here. He is a proud, medium-sized business owner. We started out as a small business. It's a service-disabled veteran business. I am super proud of that because I was lucky enough to have my husband serve in the Navy, my biological father serve in the Navy, and my grandfather served in the Navy. So, no offense to the Army, but
we won't hold that against you.
Exactly. My best friend's father, Army, and we don't talk about it. So the point being that we have a really proud tradition, and I'm lucky to be in Connecticut. We were in Farmington for 15 years. We've now been in Avon for 4 years, and it is, as Beth said, keeping Connecticut, Connecticut. I was a little surprised when I moved here 19 years ago. I thought it was a little more blue than what the reality was, and so now that we have a tied Senate and we have a not so big majority in the House of 79 to 72, if we are going to keep Connecticut, Connecticut, it's more important than ever that we do have people who step up to run and that we do support the Democrats who are running. It doesn't mean that we don't work together. It doesn't mean that we have to be partisan all the time, but it does mean that if we want to keep the things that we care about alive, we have to support the candidates who are running. So if you're not from Avon and Canton, I invite you to really support the people who are in your towns. The number one question that we get asked as candidates is, why are you running? This is not always my favorite question because I think that I could literally go on about it all day long. It started crying on a couch. Last January, I called my state Central Party rep and I said, if I wanted to run, what would that look like? So I do not come by this decision lightly, but I spent an entire year looking at it. As I'm sure when you first ran, you had to move some things around, you had small kids and that sort of thing. I was lucky enough, one of the reasons I am running is because I was lucky enough to have a front row seat at this last municipal election, along with an unbelievable team of 11 candidates and my blessed Dana, and many, many other volunteers. We were able to run a campaign that I am truly proud of. There are people in this room who ran, some who did get elected and some who didn't. Eileen Carroll, who got elected, Jason and Domenico, who got elected, Kim Pereira and Ellen Rattel, who did not get elected, but I'm going to get them elected again. You give me a couple years. Our beloved David Pena, who's been a public servant for so long. These are people who inspired me to run, because honestly, if you'd asked me in June, I would have said, yeah, I think I'm leaning away from this decision. But watching how these 11 people came together as a team to support our town, that was incredibly inspiring. So that would be my #1 reason for running, is because I got to have a front row seat to some pretty outstanding people, and I just want to. Yeah. When Beth says it's winnable, I do believe that. We turned out 43% more Democrats in Avon than we did in 2015. That's significant. Similar numbers in Canton. We turned out more Democrats than Republicans the first time in probably decades. The 102, 106-year-old lady says there were Democrats running things. I don't know about that. So I also want to share that I am running because I was blessed to go door to door with many of my candidates. I made a lot of phone calls. I heard what you had to say. I heard your concerns. I heard that you're worried because your kid is part of the Husky program and it's not getting funded, and what are you going to do? And that is a huge concern. I heard the concerns about, you know, is our state economy going to be chugging along? What are we going to do about that? I heard your concerns about the environment, because we used to be the leaders in environmental technology, and things are slowing down, and they shouldn't be, because that's how we can keep jobs in Connecticut. If we work on our environmental sector, we can keep the jobs. We talked about the cost of public education, and it's frightening for so many families that want to send their children off to college, and they don't know how they're going to pay for it. And you know, my husband and I talk a lot about the phrase, to whom much is given, much is expected. And if that's the way that I can listen to you and go up to the Capitol and fight on your behalfs for the things that you care about, that's the best thing that I can do for you. You know, I'm running because I have spent years in my communities volunteering. I have spent years alongside people, whether they're women, men, on boards, bake sales, annual funds, you name it, I've done it. It was all great, and some of it was building the plane and flying it at the same time. That's my favorite phrase, because that has described my entire life. I figure things out, and that's what it is. That's the gig. It's building the plane and flying it at the same time. So whether it's negotiating between two moms over the color of napkins at an auction, which, believe it or not, is very challenging. Harry? Yes. Harry was one of the mothers. Just saying. Or negotiating when I was on the Hands-on Hartford board, and we really thought we might have to close the doors when the economy tanked in 2008. We had a gentleman who was not ready to retire, who literally eliminated his own job through retirement in order to keep the doors open at Hands-on Hartford. We had to hire, at that point we were hiring a new CEO because our very beloved executive director was retiring after 23 years. These are the tough things that you have to learn how to negotiate, and unfortunately, that was one of those situations. We hired someone and had to accept his resignation within a very few months. So again, these are the skills that I can bring to Hartford. But the most important thing, Gary mentioned, I am a writer. I collect stories. And that's the thing that I really want to stress tonight, is I need to hear from all of you. It is so important to me that I hear the things that you care about, that I hear the things that you want me to fight for, because at the end of the day, none of it matters if I am not serving you. This is all about service for me. That is what matters to me, is that we are better together, and that we are better because we are finding ways to work in tandem. There's no reason that our engaged populace can't have a say in how things are handled, both at the state level and the national level. And so I hope that I bring that to you. So I thank you so much again for being here.